Okay, y'all, welcome back to the channel. And today, I feel like I have a good idea for y'all. We are going to be ranking the JoJo parts. Now, I don't think I've done a JoJo ranking on this channel. I know I've done it on my TikTok maybe 2 or 3 times, but I think a long form version of it will do the ranking actually justice. But to start off, part 1. Now, me personally, I've rewatched part 1 a few times just because it really was better than people give it credit for. A lot of people think part 1 was mid. A lot of people think it was bad. A lot of people think it was skippable. I don't think part 1's skippable, personally. If you skip part 1, you can never go back to it, honestly. And like, you're missing key information in part 1 and part 2 because people skip part 2 too. But it tells a story of two 1800s Englishmen going back and forth. Someone who uses the power of the sun versus a literal vampire. It was a very interesting dynamic to see. That's why, me personally, I give it a 7 out of 10. Now, my original rating of it, when I first watched it, was about a 6 out of 10. I still enjoyed it somewhat. Like, it had a little bit above average enjoyment, but like, I felt like it could have been better. Now for part 2. Now, before I get into like the rest of the rankings, I also want to say this. All of these rankings are my personal enjoyment of these animes. Just me personally. But for part 2, I felt like part 2, it over exceeded my expectations by a lot. Coming into part 2, I didn't know how they were going to incorporate everything that went on in part 1 into part 2, but it worked perfectly because then we get the introductions to the stone mask, the pillarmen, and throughout part 2, watching the pillarmen just go crazy, it was insane, honestly. And really, it was just how crazy the abilities were and how much they had advanced in the 50 years time skip we saw from part 1 to part 2. Even how we saw Harmon advance in the techniques we see. I think with that being said, I would give part 2 probably a 9 out of 10. I really did like it through and through throughout the whole, I think, 12 episodes. Up next, part 3, Stardust Crusaders. Now, I was very mad seeing Dio come back. But then I started thinking to myself, I was like, hey, at least we have stands, and we get the introduction of stands. Even though at the time the stands were nowhere near as crazy as they get later in the parts, it was very nice seeing them. It was nice seeing the switch up from Harmon to stands. One of my favorite ones when it first got introduced was Magician's Red, and seeing, really it was because the first encounter Avdol had with Jotaro and they had the little fight. From then on, I was hooked. But I will say one of the only drawbacks with part 3 is I feel like at the time David Productions, they didn't have the pacings we see in the later parts. You know what I mean? So even though they were pacing and adaptating part 3 at a pretty fast rate, almost 3 chapters an episode, part 3 ended up being about 48 episodes, which compared to the rest of the parts, which I think most of them said like 38, 39, something like that. That's an extra 9 episodes. So to me, it felt like it was dragging just a little bit going through it, but it also felt like it was very interesting seeing the different stands and the different side characters they encountered. But after a while, you could see the formula, which was like, meet someone, fight them. Meet someone, fight them. Get chased down, it was just that. And I feel like the anime version kind of missed on Jotaro a little bit, but I made a whole another video on that. You can go watch it. Probably put it on screen right here. But yeah, part 3, I give part 3 an 8.5 out of 10. It was still a very good part. Just little stuff with the anime. Okay. This part right here, it needs no introduction. Diamond is Unbreakable, part 4. I could say so much. I love almost everything, pretty much everything about part 4, honestly. From the character designs, to the music used, to the backgrounds. The only thing I don't really like is how long it took for us to see Kira, but like, that was whatever. Part 4 contained really probably my favorite side cast, my favorite JoJo, and one of my favorite villains in JoJo being Kira. So all in all, I give it about a 10 out of 10. Favorite part in JoJo, or at least it's tied for being my favorite. Y'all will see what it's tied with soon. Okay, up next, part 5. Now, my opinion of part 5 has fluctuated. When I first saw it, I liked it a lot, but I didn't have it that high up. Then I gave it a rewatch and I was like, oh my god, this is beautiful. But then I gave it another rewatch and I still felt it was beautiful, but then it just kind of, my rating of it kind of mellowed out. But part 5 has a great side cast. One of my favorite tweakers of all time, Diablo. Contrary to how a lot of JoJo fans feel, I really do like Giorno. Even though I do get the feeling that sometimes he did feel a little boring, I did still like his character and what he represented and what he stood for. And the ending was truly fitting for someone who was the child of Dio Brando and Jonathan Joestar. So with that, I give part 5 a 9 out of 10. Now listen, when it comes to this JoJo ranking, I have a 1A and a 1B. Y'all have seen 1A. This part though, part 6, it's not 1B. It's my second favorite part. I love part 6 with all my heart. One of the only things I didn't like about part 6 is sometimes the chemistry was off with all the characters and you really don't see all the characters together almost at all throughout part 6. But it contains my favorite ending of all time, one of my favorite villains of all time in JoJo, and one of my favorite JoJo's. I feel like it was done exceptionally. I give part 6 a 9.5 out of 10. Now for part 7. Steel Ball Run. I love Steel Ball Run. I love Steel Ball Run. I don't talk about it much because on TikTok, because TikTok is mostly short form content and I'm not trying to spoil nobody. But I can talk about it here. If you want to scroll or if you want to skip in the video, you can skip in the video. But Johnny's journey of recovery and becoming a brand new person throughout the series, not only physically but mentally, it was so beautiful to see. And him and Jaro had the best friendship in the entire series, like hands down. The only one close is Josuke and Okuyasu, but him and Jaro, it's like a friendship, mentorship, fantastic. And Araki really honed in this time, making Funny Valentine really diabolical. He made the villain like so irredeemably diabolical in the chapters, because this part 7 is around the time he switched from shonen to seinen, and he used that to his full extent. But part 7, I give part 7 a 10 out of 10. It is my 1B. Love part 7. Now for part 8 and part 9, I haven't completely finished part 8, so I won't go too in depth, and I'll probably just give my rating. And so since I haven't finished part 8, I've only read a chapter of part 9, which was the first. But I really do love part 8 so far. Josuke is very quickly becoming one of my favorite JoJo's. I feel like the supporting cast and really just the Hokagekhi family is so key in the part. It really hooks you in. I'm like close to 80 chapters in. Still haven't met Toru and Wonder of You and his stand, but I know it's going to be very interesting when we get there. But so far I give part 8 8.5 out of 10. But that's all for the video. If you enjoyed, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and until next time, we're on the road to 2K, so please subscribe. Peace.